本日最初のトークセッションは、コンセンシスのビジネスストラテジスト、トム・リンドマンさんより、ディスリルとセキュリティ、開発ライフサイクルについてお話しいただきます。トムさん、よろしくお願いいたします。
じゃあ皆さん、こんにちは。トーマスです。よろしく。I can't see anybody because it's light, so I hope there's somebody here listening. I lived in Japan a long time ago after college. 長野県の方に住んでましたから、ちょっと日本語できるんですけど、Today I'm going to speak English. Mostly, if I try to read this in Japanese, it's going to become katakana. Friction, this, global. So I might as well speak English, right? But afterwards, I'm happy to meet you and talk and ask some questions. So I work at a company called ConsenSys. It's a global company, and we have members maybe in 40 countries around the world. It's a very distributed company. It's kind of an experiment. It's a flat company. So we don't have any managers, and everyone works on what they think is very important. So it's very interesting. So we're building tools, we're building applications, we're building platforms, a lot of different things for the next version of the internet. Sometimes we call that Web 3. The team that I'm on is called ConsenSys Diligence. And we sometimes call that a circle. So inside ConsenSys, there's lots of circles. And underneath Diligence, we have a couple new products. One is called Mithril, which I'll talk about today mostly, and then Panvala. Diligence is where we do the security audit that takes about 2 or 3 weeks of the engineers looking at the code for smart contracts and distributed applications. So we look very, very deeply. And we use some automated tools, such as Mithril. And Panvala is a new product, which is a token-curated registry of smart contracts that we think are safer than other contracts. So these 3 products are all about making Ethereum and the Ethereum ecosystem safe and healthy. I think healthy is a good word. Of course, with security, it's never like 100% perfect. It's just we try to do our best. I spent a long time in cybersecurity, and there's a lot of famous attacks or hacks that took place where your identity was stolen or something was taken from Facebook or something. And that's really bad. And sometimes somebody got in trouble or they got fired or something. But in this space, in blockchain space, when the smart contract or the application is attacked, it's really bad. Right? You lose all of your tokens, you lose all of your money. And I think you know about some of the attacks that have happened with parity in the DAO and all of that. So these products that I run all focus on security. So inside ConsenSys, we have lots of different areas that are happening. I'm over where the products are. So we have probably 55 or 60 products. The solutions is kind of our consulting arm, and we have about 600 consultants around the world. We build infrastructure, we do education, we have capital that does investments, and then like I said, I do the security stuff over on the product side. So today we're going to focus on Mithril. And I think Mithril was actually from Lord of the Rings, and it was like the armor that the elves used to wear that was very powerful, so that's where we got the name. But the architecture right now kind of looks like this. Mithril started as an open source tool, and we're expanding that to have several different modules, or kind of like a microservice. So the first one is called Maru, and that's a static analysis. It's also called a linter. And so this is usually the first part that runs, and it checks to see if you have the right version. It looks at all of the different known issues or known attacks or mistakes that you could find, and it kind of checks everything off. There's something called code smell, which I thought was kind of funny, but that's basically it's looking for problems. Then we've got, let me just put them all up here. So like this. There we go. So down on the left side is sort of the core Mithril symbolic execution engine. And so this replaces different functions in different parts of the code with symbols and runs it and tries to find different mistakes. And this is extensible, and it also builds into your development lifecycle. So today I'm going to talk a lot about, during the development lifecycle, how to think about security and how to use some Mithril tools as you develop secure code. We also have a dynamic analysis module that also does fuzzing. So this is checking for vulnerabilities and looking for different pathways. These all talk to each other and say, I looked over here. Did you look over there? Yes, I looked over here. Did you find anything? Yes. And it's all integrated. And then we have something called Maestro, which takes all of the data and puts it all together and decides, do we need to look over here some more, or is this okay? And it generates the reports and everything. So in the slides that I show you, every time that you see Mithril, the little M, this is what it's doing, okay? So I want to talk about this, I called it the Smart Contract Secure SDLC, which is Software Development Life Cycle. So it's a big, giant name. I worked for Microsoft for a long time, about 20 years. And at Microsoft, we always have big, gigantic, long names. So that's kind of from my Microsoft days. But what it means is that when we're developing for Ethereum or other blockchain technologies, especially when we're talking about smart contracts that execute on the blockchain, we need to really bring back the idea of security. A long time ago, there was a security sort of built into the development lifecycle called waterfall. Do you remember that? It was, you'd write the specifications, and then you'd write the code, and then you'd do the testing, and it was very step by step. That evolved. We started to do Agile, and then we started to do DevOps, where we just build and put the code out very fast, and fix it, and put it back, and fix it, and put it back. We can't do that anymore. If you put the code out, and it's broken, you're going to be in trouble. So what I made is a new cycle to think about security in all the different phases. So the first phase is kind of what we call, design and simulate, I think is okay. So design is making sure that you're following the best practices for security and safety. The ConsenSys Diligence team has a big repo of best practices on GitHub that's open for everyone to use. We have readiness guidelines. Open Zeppelin is a partner of ours, and they have some libraries that are already tested and already validated, so try to use those if you can. We have another friend called Trail of Bits. They have, it's called Not So Smart contracts. It's basically bad code, so don't use that. And then a very interesting part of this phase is that's kind of new is called simulation. And I'm pretty sure that's Japanese is the same. Simulation. So it means that we want to try to understand what's going to happen. So maybe I have tokens, maybe I have multiple users, something's on-chain, something's off-chain. What's going to happen when this goes live? So we run simulations, and we have a partner called @Chai who's helping us build Mithril. And this is very difficult to see, but what it means is that they can, yes, very difficult to see. Well, pretend that this is very important, okay? You can look at it later. But it basically is a multi-user, multi-agent simulation run where you can start to figure out what the pathways are before you really start developing or release your code. So this is one of our partners @Chai, and they'll be making a service called Revelation AI. In the next part, we get to the develop phase. And so here, you're really starting to write your code, and you're working on your smart contracts. And maybe you're using Truffle or Visual Studio Code. Maybe you're using Remix. It kind of doesn't matter. But there's the first M for Mithril. Kind of looks like Space Invaders, I guess. Yeah, a little bit. So now is when you can start to do some testing, and one of the most important things is to create your test cases. For all of the different pathways of your code, you want to create test cases, and you can use Mithril to do that. You can also start running Mithril tests as you're doing your development work. So this is kind of where you get started. When you run Mithril today, it's kind of this is a command line tool interface, and we ran this from Truffle. So we're going to be working very closely with Truffle, but this was just a simple thing. And basically what Mithril does is it'll go and spin, work. You basically pass in your bytecode or your contract code, and let it work, and then it will give you the results back. And it'll show you what the errors were, what the line of code was, and what the mistakes are. Now there's something over here on the right called SDLC, which is something that we recently published in GitHub I guess it was about a month ago. And it's a registry and sort of a standard of smart contract weakness classifications. And so I just grabbed this. I grabbed one 109. And so there's a description of what it is, what the problem is, how to learn more information about it. It links to the CWE classifications that are more general security. And then we'll show you an example of the code that's having a problem. So this SDLC registry, this is open. We want everyone to contribute to this and have our security tools checking for all of these types of things. It's kind of a little bit like antivirus, right? You have a blacklist signature file of all of the known viruses. These are all the known mistakes for smart contracts. So then we get into the testing phase. Let's do this. So now we really are, we're getting done with the code, and we're going to start running Mithril in a more advanced way. We're going to add more modules to it that might do some custom work. We don't really talk about formal verification yet. I think it's a little early for that, but you can certainly get Mithril running in your development environment so that, for example, every time you're checking out code or doing a pull request, you can run Mithril. And then if you're at a major milestone, you can run a longer version of Mithril, have it run overnight. So we have a partner called Guardrails, and let's see if this is going to work. This might not work. Basically, they built an integration so that when you do a pull request from GitHub, it automatically runs Mithril, and it'll tell you if there's any mistakes. Oh, it's working. Okay, so it's a pull request, and Mithril's running, and pending scan in progress. So this is an alpha version of Guardrails, but you can go try this. And then it says that we detected some security issues, and you can click on that, and it'll show you where in the code the issue was. And this happened automatically with pull request. So again, the idea and the point is that you're really integrating security very, very tightly into your development cycle. We cannot take the risk of losing $100 million worth of tokens because of some tiny, tiny little mistake. Okay, so this is kind of a new world that we're in. After this, we're going to deploy and get those contracts or get those applications out onto a test net, or maybe the mainnet for Ethereum, or maybe you're going to deploy those out to like something like Azure, or an off-chain private chain for testing, running more simulations. This is also where we see a lot of our clients and friends doing bounties. So now you say, okay, we developed it, we did simulations, we tested it. Now I'm going to let the community try to break it. And so you put out some bounties and you see what happens. So this is a very good idea, and this is usually when this happens. I said I work for Microsoft. I live in Redmond. We have a very good relationship with Microsoft, and we're getting this Mithril service integrated into the Azure blockchain workbench. Kind of looks like this. Again, it's very difficult to see, I'm sorry, but basically the Azure blockchain workbench will let you choose how you want to deploy and then work on your contracts from this private cloud. So you can choose your authentication mechanism. You can use Active Directory if you want to. You can use a different consensus algorithm. You have more control. And in the same way that when companies were moving to the internet, they were a little afraid of the internet, so they used an intranet, kind of at home. The blockchain's kind of the same right now. They're a little bit scared of the public blockchain, so they put everything on a private blockchain, and they can control it a little bit better. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. I think that's normal. After this, after you've done your bounty, this is where you want to do a formal audit. And the ILI is the logo for ConsenSys Diligence. So we have a consulting practice where our engineering team spends maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks, depending on the size and complexity of the project, and we check everything. These guys are, well, they're scary. They're very, very good at what they do. They're kind of hackers, but they're good guys. They're white hats. But the main point here is that we also use Mithril and other tools, as well as humans, to do our work. So the little circle is the human, and the little square is the robot. Isn't that clever? I didn't do that. So the point here again is be ready. Don't hurry. In 2017, when all of the ICO boom was happening, basically people would come to us and say, well, I need an audit, and we're launching our token next Wednesday. And I would say, that's that's kind of crazy. You shouldn't really do that. I can't help you. So again, we make sure that our clients have full spec and white paper, 100% test case coverage. The code has to be done and locked, and you give us a hash, and it's deployed, so that the code that we're reviewing is the same code that you're deploying. And so it's very important to just really be ready and don't rush. Don't be spank chain. They got hacked a few weeks ago, and they said, well, we didn't do an audit. And that's really bad. I should be fired. So out on GitHub, we have some of our audits are published, and they're very long. So this is just 2 different pages of some of the things that you can find inside ConsenSys Diligence audit. And so again, we run tools, we try to look at all the different pathways of code coverage and how functions are executed inside the contract, outside the contract, what's going on. We make a big diagram of that. We talk to the client and say, is this correct? Or do you agree with this? So we talk to the client almost every day when we're doing an audit. And then when we find an issue, we basically describe what that was. We check whether there's an SDLC entry for that. We show you what the code was, where the mistake was, and then we help you fix that. And then after you fix that code, we'll review it again for you and make sure that it was fixed. So it's a very deep process. It's pretty expensive. It's not cheap, but it's very, very valuable. And like I said, it's very important. So now we've used Mithril in 3 different places. And here's another one. So after you deploy, after your audit, now you're deployed on the mainnet live, and your system is working, your token is working, whatever's happening. Now you're going to be monitoring and watching what's happening live. Okay, your security is not finished yet. It's out there live, and people might be attacking your contract or your application. So this is an opportunity to run Mithril, maybe with some specific modules or commands, against your live contracts. Make sure that no versions have changed. You can look at the transactions that are happening and try to detect some attacks. One of the ConsenSys partners that we have is called Alethio. And today you'll hear from a guy named Christian Crowley, who's one of the leads on Alethio. And what we're doing with them is right from within the Alethio user interface, so you're going to be able to scan all of your different contracts. You can say, I want to scan this contract that's live and see what Mithril says about it. And you can get your results right back within the UI of Alethio. So this is another example of how we work with partners and let them use the Mithril engine to power and make their service better. I'll talk more about that. The last phase, I call it Signal. Signal is kind of a blockchain word that means information. You want to tell everyone that your contracts are safe, right? So you've done all your testing, you've done your deployment, you've done your monitoring. We have a product called Panvala, which is that mark there, that sort of P mark. And this is a token curated registry of smart contracts. And so what that means is the community is going to decide whether this contract that was applied for is safe. And if it's safe, and everybody says okay, you will get a little Panvala mark. And this little mark will show up in the UI of MetaMask or Etherscan or Alethio or anywhere that you're interacting with a contract, you can see this mark. And so you'll say, oh, this is safer than other contracts. It's like a Michelin star for a restaurant. If you get a star, then the customer says, oh, this is a little better than the other restaurant. Maybe it's not perfect. I don't know what's happening in the bank, but a Michelin star is a good thing. So this Panvala mark is sort of the last phase of this security cycle. So you're starting out with design, you're getting all the way around to showing people that it's safe. And Panvala is very early. We didn't really build it all yet, so this is pretty fake. But later you can kind of read a little bit how it works. And you apply to the Panvala registry. And when you do, you provide some evidence. What's evidence? Shoko? That says this is a safe contractor. Here's my audit report. Here's my Mithra output. And then other people can challenge and say, no, that's not safe. And then you get kicked out. So it's a token curated registry. You'll hear more about that as we go on. Okay, so that was the cycle. I wrote a Medium article about, I don't know, it was a month ago, called Powered by Mithril. And what this means is that, remember the circle that I showed you that has all of the functions of how Mithril works? Well, that means that you guys don't have to build that, right? We already built it for you, so you can just use it. And so whether you are an IDE vendor, like Visual Studio or Truffle that we saw, application lifecycle vendor, you're providing security services, maybe you're doing auditing or monitoring, whatever your service is, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. That's a very English term, reinvent the wheel. How do you say that in Japanese? Kotowaza aru janai? Reinvent the wheel? No? Come on. All right. You can tell me later. It means don't do it again, because someone already did it. And so we have a program for partners to work with Mithril, and we basically give them a license. You can use Mithril. You can get early access to all of our Mithril code and our development and support so that you can launch your service at the same time as Mithril. And we're going to share revenue with our partners. So when traffic comes up to the Mithril service, if that comes from a partner, we'll share revenue back with that partner. And we'll do some co-marketing and awareness and some different things like that. And so this is, again, coming soon. And here's a list of some of the partners that we have already. And it's still very early, but QuantStamp is here today. QuantStamp has a distributed node system to do automated machine-driven security. So they're going to be powered by Mithril. Suho is here today. Jisu's talking today around noon about some of their work. They have a service that helps people test their contracts and do security. So they're going to be powered by Mithril as well. After I speak today, Tagamori-san from NRI Secure will come out, and he'll show you some new stuff that they built that's also powered by Mithril. So this is what our program looks like, and we're building lots of different things there for people to use. And let me show you quickly. Kind of looks like this. So if you're a developer or an auditor, or maybe it's just your hobby, you're going to be able to go to a DApp or a website, or in this case, it's a partner service. And so the UX is their user experience. So whatever their web page looks like, you're going to be able to go there and use the Mithril service as part of their service. And what happens is we send up the bytecode or the contract code along with the API key to get access to Mithril and the partner ID. So all of these come up to our API. Remember, that Mithril service up there is basically just an API. You don't have to do any work there. So we send that up. We have an Oracle service that's going to come down and inform our license contract and our market contract what that request is. So, oh, somebody's trying to use Mithril. Okay, who is that? Oh, it's this guy. Great. Does he have myth tokens? Okay, so we're going to create a token that powers the service. So it's a usage-based license token. It would be called myth. And so we'll check to see, do you have myth in your license contract? And that license contract basically is associated with your wallet. So it can be MetaMask or anything. So we'll make sure you have myth. One myth token is 24 hours of usage. So again, it's a usage-based license token. It's pretty cheap. It's like 20 cents to start with. It's pretty cheap. And you don't have to go to an exchange to get this. You can go to the Mithril website and get your myth tokens directly from us. And at any time, you can change that back to ETH tokens if you didn't use it. Okay? So totally usage-based. Last, what happens is after the check is done, Mithril will run and provide you back the results. And in this case, the partner will display those results or provide those results back to you in pretty much any way that they want to. So we're making this kind of a pluggable service for our partners to use. And you'll see some demos of that today. Okay, so here's our timeline. Basically, right now and for the last 3, 4, 5 months, we've been building our team and building, expanding the open source version of Mithril, which is called Mithril Classic. So even though this Mithril API has a token system, the open source Mithril Classic will still be free and out on GitHub. Anyone can contribute to that and anyone can use that. That's Mithril Classic. We're building out the Mithril platform, and probably in 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to make it to our beta. And this will be an open beta that any developers and testers can use. It'll be on testnet, so the tokens will be free. Then we think that depending on how the testing goes, early next year in January, we're going to deploy this on the mainnet for people to start testing. And then probably in March, we have a release called Scimitar, which is like a sword from Final Fantasy is actually where this Mithril is from. Final Fantasy II. Everybody know that? This is when things will be live. So we're still early. We're working very closely with different partners to help their business model and power them. And we're finishing our product with some of our development partners as well. So we've had a lot of interest. Security is a very important topic, and that's kind of our timeline. Here's a slide. Again, I think that after the conference, everyone can get these slides, so you don't have to write this down. But we have a Mithril website, and you can read our white paper that talks about how we designed the system and why we have a token and stuff like that. The Mithro Classic repo out on GitHub, as I mentioned, is here. We have a Discord channel that we encourage everybody to join. Come and join the conversation. And then for each of our partners, we have a private channel. So we're providing support to our partners kind of in an ongoing basis. We wrote a few articles recently that are also good to read. The first one is from a guy named Bernard Mueller, who is the inventor of Mithril. He actually lives in Thailand, so our team is very distributed. We have Thailand, Singapore, Germany, Holland, Lisbon, New York, and I'm in Seattle, so it's very ConsenSys-like. The second article is one that I wrote that's kind of what we talked about today. And then this is my email. It's just Tom Lindeman at ConsenSys.net. So you can send me an email anytime if you're a developer or possibly a partner, or if you have some ideas for some kind of a relationship with ConsenSys or with ConsenSys Diligence, you can contact me. I'm kind of the business guy. I'm not sure what they call me, but that's pretty much it. So yeah, I just saw my sign, but I'm done. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Again, I can't really see anybody, but if there's a few questions, I can take a few questions right now. We have a couple minutes before Tagamori-san comes out, or we can certainly talk later. But did anyone have a question or something that was confusing, or if you want to look at a slide again or anything like that? Only easy questions, please. Nothing about plasma.
日本大丈夫なんですね。一つだけちょっと長期的なところなんですけど、イーサリアムミスリルクラシックがあるじゃないですか。あれなんでミスリルクラシックじゃなくてミスリルプラットフォームを作り出したのかっていうところが一番基本的な部分が分からなくて。
Wow, I totally didn't understand that. But I did hear you say Ethereum Classic.
Yeah, he said why Ethereum platform not for Ethereum Classic.
Say it again.
Why he said why is you created the Ethereum platform not and not Ethereum Classic?
Why did it for?
Ethereum Classic. What is the motivation of Ethereum platform? Why not Ethereum Classic?
Why not Mithril for Ethereum Classic?
Yes.
That's what I was going to answer. So good. You can speak English. Why are you speaking Japanese? So Mithril can definitely work with Ethereum Classic. It can work with Hyperledger or Quorum. We're also looking at Viper as a new language for smart contracts. The point is that there's a language, so it's Solidity or whatever the language is. Then there's a compiler, and then there's the EVM. So if all of those work together, we can use Mithril on top of that. So yes, we can use Mithril for Ethereum Classic smart contracts. Yes. That was like a hard question. One more? No?
Hi Tom, thank you for the talk. I work with Investor Communications Japan. It's a child company of Tokyo Stock Exchange, and we provide a shareholder proxy voting solution since the last 15 years for more than 1,000 paying companies. We want to translate our solution to the blockchain for the auditability of end-to-end solution. Now, basically, we have been using Quorum, the JP Morgan's thing, and so far our smart contracts are in Solidity. And one of our concern is of course security, and we were aiming to move to like Viper for its advanced features. Now my question is, in your roadmap plan, like when do you think the support will be available for Viper?
For Viper?
Yes, sir.
I would say within 4 to 6 months. It's pretty early. A lot of the developers that use Solidity, they're not super happy, and Viper has more features, but it's just beginning now. And so you're right that we have to make sure that the security tools and the audits can be used with Viper before that becomes very popular. But I think it will happen. I think there'll be many different blockchains. I think the blockchains will talk to each other, and I think there'll be lots of different languages to write smart contracts to use on those blockchains. We can talk more later too.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom. I'm afraid it's about time to
Is that it?
move into the next session. 皆様ありがとうございました。